What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. And it is me, your host, the bald, the beard, the beautiful Piers Austin. And we are brought to you by the MWA Podcast Network and the now Vince Russo owned The Realm Network, where you can get an exclusive first look at my show. You can also get an exclusive first look at Killing the Business, hosted by former ECW original, the Kingpin Angel motherfucking Medina, with King Mega and Glenn Sexton. So make sure you check out that show. You can also get Funked, hosted by former WCW and TNA star Alan Kwee Funk. And also Knights of the Gimmick Table, hosted by the Dead Presidents, Boogaloo and Lowrider. So make sure you check out those 4 shows on the Realm Network, baby. But before we get into tonight's show, it's time to take a quick second, a quick pause, a quick moment to thank some of those sponsors and help me keep these nice, colorful lights on up in this bitch. And first up is the Wrestling Universe. Now, guys, let me tell you something about the Wrestling Universe. These guys are your one-stop shop for all your pro wrestling merchandise needs. Guys, let me tell you, they have all kinds of WWE, TNA, UFC, WCW, ECW, action figures, past and present. They carry t-shirts, wrestling cards, autographed 8x10s, masks, belts, and much, much more. Guys, they also do in-store signing. So if you are in Queens, New York, you can head in there on a Friday, a Saturday, or a Sunday and see multiple names, some of the biggest names from the wrestling world. So guys, go and check it out. Now, also, guys, all of their autographed items come with a certificate of authenticity. So you know their stuff is legit. You know their shit is right. So guys, check out thewrestlinguniverse.com. And if you are like me and you are like my guest Silvio and you live on the other side of the world, baby, don't sweat, don't swear, don't freak out, because they ship internationally. They got wrestling fans covered worldwide. So you make sure you go and check out thewrestlinguniverse.com. Tell them Piers sent you. Won't do anything for you, won't do anything for me, but it's always good when someone says my name. So please go and check that out. But guys, while you're checking out stuff online, you need to check out sleeves.com. Now, sleeves.com is the place for you to go. That's SLEEFS. And if you or someone you know is an athlete, this is the place you need to go. They've got arm sleeves, knee sleeves, compression pants, compression shorts, headbands, mouth guards, boots. They've even got dirty boxes, guys. And I got to say, the dirty boxes are the most comfortable boxes that I own. They are breathable. They are always amazing. They stay fresh. And guys, they've got some cool, funky designs on them as well. So make sure you check out sleeves.com. Use promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount at checkout. And guys, once you've done it, Sleeves, you got to head over to that healthvape.com. Now, guys, let me tell you something about healthvape.com. They offer a healthy vaping alternative. Guys, none of their products have any nicotine or harmful products within them at all, and they are vitamin infused. Guys, if you were like me, I'm an ex-cigarette smoker. I'm now a vapor or a vape person. Yeah, I'm one of those douchebags with a vape. Don't bite my head off. But guys, my wife's at me. She's like, you got to get off that vape, Pierce. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I've got some of these health vape products coming in. This is my step to getting off that vape. So check out healthvape.com. You'll get 10% off when you use promo code MWAPOD. So make sure you go and check it out. But guys, as I said at the beginning of the show, you need to go and check us out on the realmnetwork.com. It is your one place where you can get as much wrestling content as you want. You've got the Russo brand. You've got the beautiful people, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky, doing their podcast. You've got Big Vito. You've got Vince Russo himself. You've got Ben Hameen. You've got Stevie Richards. You've got Shane Douglas. You've even got Wrestling with Tragedy, which you see me on every single week. So guys, make sure you go and check out the Realm Network. You'll get an exclusive look at our 4 core shows: Shooting the Shit, Killing the Business, Get Funked, and Nights of the Gimmick Table, baby. So make sure you go and check out those shows. But guys, tonight I am excited. My guest this evening I've been wanting to have on for the longest time, and I'm excited. He's joining me here tonight, and I'm going to bring him out now. He is PWA star and Australian wrestling star, Silvio. Silvio, thanks for coming on, brother.
Not a problem. Thank you for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And you know what? As I said in the beginning and before we started the show, I've been wanting to have you on for a while. So really excited to have you on and to have a amazing chat.
Can't wait. I'm excited. I love to talk about myself, and I love talking for long periods of time. So anyone will tell you that that's absolutely true. So I'm fucking ready.
That's perfect. That's exactly the way that we want it. But, you know, obviously, you know, you're in Sydney. I'm in Sydney. We're in the middle of like week 8 now for lockdown. You know, what are you doing to keep yourself sane during this period?
Well, it's like every 2 weeks that you ask me that question, I will give you a different answer. So we started off the lockdown. I was like, great, I'm just going to be self-care, focusing on myself. All I did was buy bottles of wine, drunk that, cooked. And I used to work in hospitality. So like I didn't have to worry about working. I would just do the occasional takeaway shift here or there. And then it started to realize the real depth of how long we're going to be in this for. So I was like, okay, I have to pull my head out and like actually start doing stuff that can help me. So I started doing workouts, like 5K runs, and training up to doing that. But now I have a new job, and I'm just like trying to kill time. So I don't even know at this point. Today I'll be working for umpteen hours, cooking, and then playing like video games. And then tomorrow I'll probably just be sleeping until 5 p.m. and then deciding what I'm doing from then on. So just waiting, biding time, and trying to do my best.
I'm actually kind of jealous of the fact that you can just like, I'm just going to sleep to 5 p.m. Like I'm a dad of 3, man. Like I start my day at 5 a.m. with dad. So well, I'm happy to swap places.
Be a father, but it hasn't worked for me. So, you know, here I am laying in bed till 5 p.m.
Hey, why not? Enjoy it for as long as you can. But, you know, as far as like, you know, you mentioned like going for runs and stuff like that, but how far into the lockdown were you like, okay, I need to get back into training? Like, did you stop training for a certain period?
I did. I reckon for the first 2 weeks, I really didn't do anything. That was just like the pullover from what I was doing with work. Like being in hospitality, it was just a lot of all of your time was taken up there. I was working 45 hours, just like starting at 12 p.m., finishing at like 12 a.m. and stuff like that. So I wasn't really doing much of anything. And then when I got to the first week of lockdown, I was like, oh, I don't really have an excuse to not work out, but I'm just going to ignore that thought in my head for a second. And then I just had this, I remember this terrible day where I woke up and I just had no energy, felt completely drained. And I'm sure lots of people would have the same story going through a lockdown. There's usually like one day where you can just really feel the brunt of everything. So I just had to pull myself out of that slump. I had a lot of support from, you know, PWA and our training group and a lot of people rallying up across there. So I was like, screw it. They gave us a little working regime to go by so we can keep ourselves accountable for that. And I was like, I'm just going to do what I can from this today. I went on, started like training up to do a 5K run. So it was like 1 minute on, 3 minutes off. I'm just trying to make that distance. And then I did a couple of workouts, and then I just kept that structure until I kind of pulled myself out of that slump. And I'll admit now I'm not doing it as frequently, but I'm doing it to a healthier extent now that I'm balancing it in with work and everything like that. But it took a while to get that.
I think it's important as well, like for mental state as well, to get that exercise in as well, especially in a period like now where I think everyone has so much free time. And when people have free time, it allows them to manifest shit in their head and really manifest things that aren't necessarily always there. And I think that the exercising really allows you to sort of break away from that and sort of go, hey, no, life is not that bad.
And that's the thing, like if you're being trapped inside a house or apartment or wherever it is that you have to be in lockdown for an extended period of time, you're just you're not getting any change of environment. So it's only natural that you're going to have random thoughts pop up that wouldn't usually occur. So sometimes even just going for a run or a walk was just a way to pull myself kind of out of that headspace physically. And it's the only real thing that you can do outside now. So it's like to be able to do that, it becomes something that you actually look forward to doing, because it's that 1 hour that you have in the day where you get to be outside of your environment for a little bit and really just have time to yourself, because unless you're going on a run with someone else, but I never understood the logistics of that. It's just a good time to be able to like separate yourself from that and really be able to get yourself into a better mindset.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Like I was always like, train 4 or 5 days a week, like try and what I mean, and get that in. And then like when lockdown happened, it was just like, no, I just was like, oh yeah, it'll be a few weeks. And then it was like after like 4 weeks, my wife's like, you need to go and start doing something. Like you're going insane, and it's really important. But as far as like the wrestling side of things go, like we experienced like a lockdown last year. Everything got put to a standstill, and then pretty much Australian wrestling was like the only live wrestling in the world that was at full capacity for several months, and then we're back here as well. How is your mindset of being going through that? Like obviously as a performer, having that first lockdown, being able to come out the other end of it, performing again, and then having it taken away months later.
It's difficult. I'll be honest. Like when we did have that, I'd probably say it was around like 6 to 8 months of time where we were the only ones really producing anything, and we could have crowds. Well, not even crowds, but we're just producing stuff, and then we could have crowds. It felt like it was a really powerful time for us, because obviously it was the first onset of COVID that we dealt with, and everyone was really motivated, and we were like, okay, this is a really terrible situation, but this is an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity to get product out there where there's nothing else being done, and really push on the front of trying to boost Australian wrestling and show people what we can do. So we all found ourselves very motivated, put in a lot of work, and then to have that kind of taken away where you have so much momentum built up, you see the flip side. And now I'm kind of understanding where America and Japan and the UK were at in that position, where it was like all I can do now is watch their product, and it's out of my control to be able to do anything else. So whilst wrestling is usually the thing that keeps me sane, it's usually my release. Now watching something, whether intentional or not, doesn't bring me as much joy as it does, because now I'm watching it. I'm like, oh, this is a really great show. And then after I watch the show or watch a really good match, it's like, oh, despite the fact that I liked it, I can't do anything to match that. It's out of my control to be able to put on something that is a response to a match that I've seen, or put together, try a move that's something that I've experienced, or anything like that. So you don't really have that creative release anymore. And I was actually talking about this with Shazza McKenzie literally like a few days ago. This is like, I'm 22 now, so this was supposed to be the time that I had where I'm in my prime and I should be exploring stuff, like using my young body to do weird and reckless shit, traveling around interstate. Like I've rarely wrestled interstate. I've wrestled once maybe in Queensland. And I really, really by this time wanted to have done a little season in the US at least. And that's the trajectory that you've given yourself. Like those were your goals, and you don't have the choice to achieve those goals. So when there's something telling you that you can't do it, usually your response is to find the ways around it. But now you literally can't do it, and you have no option around it. So you're just in this position where it's like, I'm trying to do everything to set myself up in that position so that when we can reopen and do stuff, I'm prepared and ready and driven, because I really just want to focus all myself into wrestling right now. I have so much of myself that I want to give and show to people, but I can't do it, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, from a performer, I can imagine that would be the most frustrating part, when it's like it's not in your control. There's nothing that you can do to change that. It's just the way that the world is, and I can't imagine what it would be like for you guys that are going through it.
Yeah, and there's so many different levels to that as well. Like getting to PWA was hard enough as it was. Like I've been wrestling on and off since I was 15. So I've been here for about 7 years. But most of the time, a lot of people think that I'm still very fresh and new, just because I guess how much I've actually done is not as substantial as the amount of years that I've been around. Where I've done heaps of shows and stuff, but nothing completely majorly of note. So me finally making it into PWA was that big moment for me, where I worked very hard to change from another school into something where I was like, this is the best that Australia can offer right now, and this is where I know where I can see myself being. And I made it to that stage, and I was slowly getting onto shows and building up that momentum. People started to know me, started to get good reactions, and it's like, I need this momentum to continue on, so I can then have people thinking about, oh, I want to have a match with this guy, or I can think of a storyline, or I want him to come to Melbourne and wrestle on one of my shows. But that momentum's kind of cut short by so many external factors, and that's the frustrating thing, because you're like, you want to get this steamroller going, and so does everyone else. There's like 50 people wanting to get on a show, but there's 10 spots, and everyone's fighting for that, and everyone's more determined than ever and crazy. But even that's something you can work and try to get around. Just trying to be the best at what you can do. But even now, there's 0 spots on this show, and there's still 50 people wanting to do it, which obviously is impossible. There's nothing that you can do about it. So yeah, it's just this weird situation that no one ever foresaw coming. No one ever could tell you that this is something you're going to experience, and because of that, you don't really know how to deal with it, because everyone's dealing with it for the first time. The closest thing that people could say is that it's like having an injury and you're out for 6 months and you don't have a choice. But the thing is, you can at least do rehab, or you can watch up, or you can go to local shows and still get those connections there. But here you just can't.
Yeah. When you started at AWF, correct?
Yeah, I did.
How did you stumble across AWF?
Oh, to be honest, they were the first local wrestling show I saw in Australia, because obviously we would go to, like, my dad used to always watch it with me and my brother and my cousins and stuff. But I remember there was a show up the road at a venue right near our house where I used to live. And I just remember having beef with someone as a fan. I was like an 8-year-old kid, and I just remember like mouthing off to Nikki Nitro at that stage. I didn't know who she was. The first time I've ever seen her, but I just remember that she was constantly feeding back, and that made me more involved in that. So when I was 15, I searched up wrestling classes, because I was like, oh, I remember seeing it in Australia. I know it exists. Google's not going to hurt. So I did it. I applied for it. I didn't tell my dad I applied for it. I just told him when they said, oh, yeah, here's where it is. And he was kind of like, oh, shit, I can't do anything. I can't say no. I didn't want you to do it, but like, okay, go for it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my first foot in the door. After I had that moment there and I had my first match at 15, I just trained there for, what was it, about 3 years. But with school and like some personal issues that were there, it was very on and off. So I don't really even count those years as training. That's why I always say I had my first match at 15, but I haven't really been training since that age. But I probably started fully getting into it at 18, because I remember my first proper match was in Queensland for what do they call it? Supernova?
Yeah. I think so, yes.
Yeah, and AWF is always the show called to that. So I remember doing that, and that was on my birthday. So I remember my 18th birthday, I went to Queensland for the first time in like 10 years and had my first wrestling match. So that was really cool.
But you said like you had your first match at 15. Like, once you went there and started training, do you feel like, because like I think that's within the first year of you training, having your first match. Like, do you feel like you weren't really necessarily ready to go and have that match at that stage?
It was a different, I guess, expectation, because you're not a wrestler then. Like, you're having your first match. You don't really know what the wrestling training is or what it requires. So you're kind of in there. It was a dream camp. So it was basically just learning the bare basics of these things that you would need to do in a 5-minute match. And at that stage, it was like, oh, yeah, I've done enough work in this week, and I'm going to get this cool CD where I can show all of my school friends. But then doing wrestling for longer than that and actually being a wrestler, it's like I wrestled in my first match after a week of training.
That's insane.
Like it was, and my character was completely different from what I did now, and everything was, it was just completely flipped on its head. And it's like I wouldn't take it back because I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't have that experience. And I used a lot of the clout to be able to show my school friends at the time. But yeah, it was a very, very different experience. Like everything was very pre-planned. So
Yeah.
everything was to the book. Everything was, this is the move you're doing, this is the move you're doing, this is the move you're doing. So I can understand why it took a shorter amount of time, but it was still kind of, just thinking back on it now, it was like, that really wasn't a good idea.
What was the gimmick?
I was I called myself K-Bell, because it was Cain and Abel, but also the cable between the afterlife and the current world.
That's some deep shit.
Right?
That's some deep shit for a 15-year-old.
Tell me about it. I had some personal issues at the time. I'll tell you that much. It was very deeply integrated. It was in the process of me coming out, so I guess I had a lot of unresolved issues that I had to deal with. And it's still something that I'm kind of like have an interest in now, but I'm trying to figure out how to sprinkle it in a little bit into what I do. But it's not as fun as what I'm getting around and what I can get away with now. So
yeah. So you mentioned your dad wasn't that sort of keen on you starting to train, but like obviously you found it. Like, has your dad been a supportive like person for you with your wrestling journey?
Oh my god! I'm sorry, this was very hot for the moment.
No, that's all right.
The weirdest turn of events. So my dad was like, he didn't want me to go to wrestling training because it was also very new to him, and no one hears about it in Australia unless you're in the wrestling scene. So it was just like saying, "Oh, I want to do bare knuckle fighting." Like, your parents going to be like, "No, the hell you're not." And my dad, like, fully Croatian, me growing up full wog. He was just like, you're doing what now? And I was like, oh, I've already booked for it. And he's like, you're going to be in so much trouble when you come back from that. But now, I swear, he is the biggest supporter I have.
That's
like,
amazing.
But, people in the crowd will see him, and he'll be like, it'll be me, like when we had the Mardi Gras show, and I did the full entrance with two of my friends that were drag performers, and came on doing a song number, costume outfit change, coming out with these glowing wings and stuff. And so obviously I'm very over with the crowd to be able to do something like that. My dad's like, no, I don't care. I'm going to boo him when he comes out. That's what he said to me beforehand. And then I just got these recordings from fans that I talked to, where as soon as my actual song hit, my dad just screamed, like started yelling, and he couldn't hold back. And I just saw it on video, like this moment where he was like, you could just tell in his head that he was just thinking, that's my son. And that is still going to be like one of the proudest moments to my day, to know that like that's his reaction. And that's his thing. He's, no matter what I've done, wherever I've wrestled, if I've needed, like if I've had a big match or I've needed someone to show up, he's always the first person that will be there without a doubt, and I don't have to question it. Like, he will be like, oh, do you need people to come? I'll call this auntie, that auntie, this cousin, this uncle that you haven't seen for 5 years, this friend, what, you know, the whole typical like European way of doing things. And then you have just this en masse of 100 people that would come through the gates, and they're like, okay, so do we hate you or do we like you? And then I'm like, hate me. So then I just get the biggest boos of the night. Like that's his commitment to it.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of coming from a family with that background. You know, it's like they're always going to show up in droves and support. You know, so it's amazing that you've been able to have that, and your dad being, you know, the biggest fan. But when did you decide to make the jump and go over to PWA?
There was a lot of different. I'm trying to put this in the nicest way possible. A lot of different thoughts that was happening when I was like coming around after I had my moment in Queensland, where training wasn't as consistent as I wanted it to be, because I just finished school. So I was like only training once a month, and I was kind of like, hang on, this is a bit weird. So I like already had friends and stuff that were like trialing other places, and when all someone had to do was tell me that there was a training school where they had like training 3 times a week, and I was like, I'm doing the tryout, I'm going there, I'm doing whatever. But I had an interesting dynamic, because I went into PWA through the beginners class, already having been on shows, but not being to the standard of what they had wanted for people on their shows. So I started from the ground up again, from beginner to like the middle, and then the top class as well. But while I was like, oh, I've been on shows, but I'm in this beginner's class and the stuff that I don't know, I was having this weird battle where I was like, oh, I'm not in matches now and I haven't done a match for 6 months, but I really want to do this because I know that I've done it before and I know what it feels like. Whereas some of the other new people that would come through have never had that experience. So they can't really compare it to having a match when they've never had one before. So they're happy to wait. So I started doing shows again and I wasn't ready, but I thought I was like, oh, I know my body and I know what I can do better than you guys. And if someone's going to book me, I'll take the booking. I remember I did, what was it, a rumble? And it was just terrible. I had 3 spots and I just completely, I was not ready. I knew how to wrestle, but the pressure of being in front of an audience again and remembering these things, I just completely forgot. And I crumbled. And I remember Madison Eagles was watching in the crowd, which I am the biggest supporter in women's wrestling. That's the thing that drew me into it. I love Yoshi women's wrestling, Bull Nakano, everyone like that was my inspiration. My favorite wrestler of all time is Awesome Kong. Like,
That's really,
yeah. So my finishing move is the implant buster because of just out of respect for her. Because without her, I wouldn't have been continuing with wrestling. But she had a massive stint in Japan as well, which is how she actually got the name Awesome Kong. Fun story, which I know a lot about for some reason. But I remember seeing Madison Eagles there, and this was in, when was it? 2017, 2018? Probably 2017, which is only 5 years after she was ranked number 1.
wow.
So it was insane to see. And she didn't really know me because she was always doing the advanced classes and stuff. But I remember her being like, isn't he in our beginners class? Why is he on a show? And I just completely screwed everything up. And at that point, I was like, after I finished it, I talked to her and got feedback from her. And she was like, your character is great. It connected really well, but you're not ready to wrestle. And as soon as she told me that, I waited. I did not do other shows. I waited until I was at least into the intermediate class and been there for a while. And before I even started thinking about getting bookings elsewhere or moving up to the advanced class before I started reaching out again. But that was the moment that I was like, yeah, this is how I know that this is a legit school, because it's not just about we're trying to get you onto shows to try to get whatever we can out of you. They're actually in there for the safety of it, and that they'll show you why, and we'll teach you all the things. They're not only just going to be like, oh, you're shit and walk away. They're like, this is what you screwed up and this is how you fix it. If you have questions, you can ask anyone about it, but they're generally just there for the well-being, and they have every intention of just raising Australian wrestling to the highest point that it can be at, and to be at such a good standard. So as soon as that happened, I just had the most respect for her, and I was like, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, and I think that that's the thing that you see with PWA is the care factor that they have for everyone involved there. It's to get everyone to the level that they need to perform at. And when you're in a wrestling match, you know what I mean? You're taking someone's life in your hands essentially. And if you don't know what you're doing or you're not trained properly, you're going to end up hurting someone else or yourself really badly. And I think that having that mentality, and even having Madison sort of saying, hey, look, your character is, is decent, but you should not be wrestling. I can imagine the feeling of being told that, being a young person, being like, oh, you know what I mean? The letting the wind out, but also the respect to go, well, you know what? She's right.
Yeah. There was nothing in my head that could have defended against that. It'd be different if it was someone that I know had presence, but I didn't really connect much to. But because it was someone specifically like Madison Eagles to be able to say that, it did take the wind out of me a little bit, but it was also reflecting on it, you screwed up 2 out of 3 spots in a 2-minute moment that you had in the ring. If you can't do that, she's completely correct. If you can't do the pressure of that. I was like, I still had that mindset of being that young 15-year-old that just wanted to wrestle and be like, oh, look what I'm doing, look what I'm doing. But that was a moment where I was thinking of wrestling less of a hobby and more of something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to commit myself to doing more. And I was like, I don't want to be putting myself in a ring and giving a terrible product. I want to be going out there and doing something that I know I can be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's probably the main importance of it as well. But as far as, you know, your character, when did you start to really evolve that to what it is now as Silvio?
Um, it's a bit of a labored growth. So obviously I had that first character that we were talking about, which was that weird edgy teen guy that's like, "Oh, I have feelings and I don't know how to display them, so I hate everyone and I'm gonna chokeslam people." Um, when I first was preparing to go to Queensland, TNT actually helped me with the foundations of my character, which was using my birth name as well because it was just a cool, fancy name.
Mm.
But he was like, you have a great look. You're quite attractive, handsome as a male. Like model gimmick, go for it. I was like, I didn't know I was allowed to do that because I've only seen this one form of wrestling with this one company, and a lot of the people were just wearing black and red, aggressive men, or really like flamboyant women.
Mm.
There was no in between. So I was like, I didn't really know I could do that. But when he kind of gave me that bone, I was like, oh, this is something I can relate to a lot more. Um, but the onset of it was literally just me having all silver and a little bit of pink, and it was just model. But there was nothing to do with my actual pride that came through on that. That was just a character, a wrestling persona, and then to evolve that, it just developed on further where I started to change my music and adapt it. So it was like I don't really know much about runway modeling. I don't know much about camera modeling. Like I've done gigs here and there, but I couldn't be like, oh, my favorite model is so and so, or this is my
Yeah.
favorite runway, or this is my favorite blah blah blah. So I was like, I can't do this character authentically. I can pull out a good look, but there's only so much that's going to get you. Where if I'm pulling promos, I need to be able to talk more about this, and I couldn't. So that's where I started to look into it more. So then when I jumped to PWA and we started to do more of the intermediate stuff, which was thinking about moves that I would do or ways that I would present myself, which is I was like, there's different avenues of characters that you can do, but I'm just going to be me times 110%. And I
Mm.
put a lot of effort to first of all come out as gay, accept myself, and then not only that, put myself to a complete audience of strangers and bear all of that for them to just kind of ingest. And I was like, if I
Mm.
can have the strength to do that, then I have the strength to be myself on this stage. Um, but when I started doing more shows, the easiest way to introduce me was very catty. And it
Yeah.
was like being like, oh, still kind of modelly, but more of the queerness would come through. So I'd read people like drag people on Drag Race would,
Yeah.
and would have my outfit that I'd come out. So I'd just be like, oh, that doesn't suit you. That doesn't look good. This color's unflattering, or this city's terrible. These people are ugly. That type of stuff.
Yeah.
And more as I did that, it became endearing because people wanted to get red or shaded, and that's where my first initial image came through with me with the shade fan.
Yeah.
And that was things that people could like start to pull on. And I used to have people like dressing up with their own fan or wearing the shirt that would be very easily describable and be like, okay, we know shade is a Silvio term. So then I started to become more of that flamboyant. So I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on pink, and all of my outfits that I design or get help other people to come up with the concept for has to have pink somewhere featured on it. I
Mm.
don't like having just one outfit that I change different colors. I like to have different outfits because I feel like that suits me as my model gimmick is what I'm supposed to do is pulling off different looks. But as long as it has that lick of pink in it, that's something that pulls through. And then as I started appearing on shows more regularly, people liked that side of me. So even when I was trying to be catty and rude, people started cheering for that. So it stopped being ill felt or having that bad resentment towards it, and I would just start doing it cheeky. So it would be a
Yeah.
bit more like, how people started to like Eddie Guerrero because he'd be cheeky and he could get away with it. It
Yeah.
started to become that thing. So that really progressed a lot more when I was in um, other companies I was working for a lot more, and people would start to see me pop up in the scene. Then
Mm.
finally made it into my first PWA show, which was a Green Label show at the time. I think, yeah, it was a Green Label show, and at that stage, I was already people knew me. I was a face. They came in, didn't have to do anything. As soon as that music played, people already recognized it. I got such a loud reaction. It was insane. And that moment, I remember walking through the venue and walking down that ramp, and I just felt so happy. as soon as that match finished, I cried because I was just like, that was insane. I've worked at least like 3 years to be able to get on a show after not being on shows, or not being on shows regularly. And the year leading up to it, I finally started getting back on shows and I worked really hard. And then obviously people are getting other opportunities and you start to think that it's your ability is the reason why you're not getting onto shows, but it just wasn't the right time. And then the right time came up, it fell together, it happened. And then I was like, this is what I love. This is the energy that I love. This part of myself is what I enjoy doing. And then that's how my character came to life, to what it is now. Like, to think that I was someone that people booed for 3 years ago is insane to think, because I don't even think I could try to get a. I don't even think if I was to start verbally berating someone that people would boo. Unless I singled out a child and started trash talking them, it would be so hard to now. But
but I think as well, like it's a good way for like even when you're doing that to a heel, and you're sort of like they're coming out doing their shtick, and then you come out and basically going, "Well, hang on a second, like let's look at what's going on here," and you know what I mean. Straight away, like you mentioned Eddie Guerrero with that cheekiness and that sort of lie, cheat, steal sort of thing. It was like that becomes endearing after a while, and even now, like with your character, you could very much easily turn at that heel or face. Obviously by altering little things. And that's my view of wrestling. Like a good character can go heel or face either way just by little tweaks. Like it doesn't have to take massive amounts to change to get a different reaction.
That's the money for that one, because that's exactly what I did when I first started. I was like, I have no idea how to wrestle as a face, but I'm just going to keep doing the exact same stuff that I was doing before, because there wasn't a moment of time where it was like, oh, everyone's cheering for me now. It gradually happened, and I was still technically the heel. So as that switch happened, I was like, I'm just gonna not kick someone in the nuts per se. But I might do something to distract the referee, or I might bend over really slyly and they look away, then I'll hit them in the nuts. And then it's kind of like, oh, it's funny. He was just, being fun or something like that. Like it's the little things like you were saying, where I was like, it wouldn't be me if I wasn't doing them. I can still do a lot of that cheeky stuff, but because there's now that sense of niceness echoed through it, that you can get away with it.
Yeah, 100%. And do you feel, because you mentioned earlier that you came out at a young age as a teenager, did you feel like because you were able to come out at a young age to be able to go out and do that character, that flamboyancy in front of a large amount of people gave you that confidence because you had sort of gone through that sort of struggle, or not struggle, I would say. I don't know if it was a struggle, but to be able to go through and do that at that character, do you think that was a defining factor for you?
It is by far both the worst and the best thing that's ever happened. And I say this for this reason. It's the best thing because it became larger than life. So I stepped out and I was like, oh, this is when I first was dealing with the changing character. I was like, didn't have the strength or the confidence to be able to do it. So probably impossible to find now, but if you ever find one of those matches of me where it's like my first things, I'm not there. I'm not present as a person. I'm just kind of like a shell of whatever, and I'm just doing my motions and leaving out there. But it was one of those thoughts where I was like, if I was able to do this at such a young time where I was still so reliant on people and I wouldn't have known what to do at that stage because I was so young, I still went and powered up and did what I needed to do. I can do this then. I now have all of the control in this situation. I can control what people see. I can control how people view me. So I have the power in the pain that I had. And that was the good thing. It really changed not only how I was in the ring, but in my life. I became very open with that. And I was like, if I can step out in the ring in lycra and have these absolute skin tight short shorts with my butt hanging out of them, then I can go on a date with this random person and be myself to them. But it's also the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I say this for other people because when I step out in the ring, that's not me. I step out and I become Beyonce. Like my personality, any thoughts that I had, I'm like, no, this person's larger than life. She's famous. She's in the ring. She's living her moment. Nothing you can tell her will ever bring her down while she's there. And because of that, I feel so sorry for anyone that has to talk to me or step up to me in that time, because that's just I'm just so up myself. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, as you said, it's yourself, times 100 or times 1,000, whatever, you way that you want to word it though. But like, I've seen you wrestle, and I really enjoy the character, because I feel like, and I said the same thing when I had Nikki Van Blair on as well. It's like, in this day and age, we can have characters like yourself and Nikki, and it's 20 years ago, that was almost like a comedy spot where it's like making fun of the gay community in a way, where it's like you had performers doing these things and making that the comedy spot, where it's now, it's like, it's more empowering. It's like, when I come and see you wrestle, it's not like a comedy spot. This is like, okay, this is a performer who is representing the LBG. I always get this incorrect, so I apologize to all of I am an ally, everyone, but I always get it incorrect. But I think now it's more empowering for people to sort of see that, even for people in the audience who either maybe haven't come out yet, seeing a performer like yourself going, okay, wow, this is someone who, I can get strength from. It's not a joke. It's, this person's coming out, they're doing amazing things. They're being themselves. And it's very clear that you guys are being yourselves. And that's what makes it, I think, special in a way in this day and age.
Yeah. And that's really the main point of focus where I draw a lot of my inspiration and grit from. Because I remember walking into PWA and there wasn't a queer person, or there wasn't an openly queer person there that I could relate to at that stage. No one was really out. No one really talked about it if they were. And it wasn't their fault. It was just the lack of representation meant that queer people didn't access that level of training, and they didn't think it was something they could do. There's still so many people that I talk to now that are like, oh, I didn't realize, like they'll always ask, oh, is it a comfortable environment? Like, are they open and that stuff? And I'll be honest, when I first started wrestling, it was really tough, because you were booked in the comedy spots. People didn't take you seriously. People didn't take your character seriously. You did catty things, you did whatever, but you didn't really have a choice about what you could do because you were new and you just wanted the time to be able to do something. The more that you're able to be on a show and prove yourself and show that you've done stuff is when you have more of that control. But I was just taken as a joke when I was basically starting working for other companies that were just booking us outside of where we were training.
But that would be hard as a young person as well, like, going through that and, really finding yourself and then being put in that situation like that. Was that hard for you?
It was, but in saying that, kind of similar to what I was alluding before, was that like there was a lot of stuff that I had gone through since, like, even before coming out when I was younger. My mum passed away at a very young age. My name is literally from my deceased grandfather. Like all of these things were things that were powered up. My mum and my stepmom, but I call her mum because I grew up with her and love her to bits. She had lots of struggles that we were growing up that me and my brother had to deal with as well, that you wouldn't usually expose or tell a child about. So a lot of that stuff that strengthened me. So when I got to this stage, it was just like, you're there, but I'm at this company where I don't train, or I'm working for this person that doesn't know me, and I don't want to. It's disrespectful for me to just go up and say that this is wrong, the way that you're doing, how you want to portray me or present me. So that was one of the things that I had to think about, and I was like, the best way for me to counteract that is by making something of myself, or getting myself to a stage where I'm important enough that people see me and seek me out. So then they can think, oh shit, this person, we should have used him better because he had so much more potential. So I guess that was the focus of that. And every one of those struggles that I had forced me into thinking and staying with wrestling longer, because I was like, if I have to go through this and I'm able to work through it, work really hard, and then become that one queer person that might be there, that might make it so much more easier for other people to come through the gates. And there's been, obviously, it's not just me, there's been so many people within even just New South Wales that have been openly queer now within the current years that have really made it easier. But for me, I was like, my motivation was PWA. And if I can be that queer person that is on the shows that people can see, then the next person to come through doesn't have to be this Pride Power Ranger like I am. It can just be them. It can just be their character. They could be some bloody samurai doing whatever, or a lawyer or whatnot, but them being gay is just a section of that. We didn't have that, I didn't have that, and I wanted that representation. So I wanted there to be no mistakes about what I was doing. If I step out into that ring, you're not questioning it. You know I'm gay. I'm extremely flamboyant. There's no doubts asked, nothing. You can just see without a beyond of a doubt that that person is gay. And that's literally all I wanted. If I was able to do that, people could see that. People would come to training more. People would see what I could do in a ring and see how much people can actually connect to me, and then would then continue to book queer talent. And now that PWA has cemented itself as one of the best promotions in Australia, the more and more shows that I'm able to do, the more storylines that I have where my character is taken seriously and I have more of those serious spots, the more and more that will happen, because people will continue to look to us and be like, okay, so we can take this idea from here, or we can see that people respond to his character. So and so when they come up will be absolutely fine in the storyline, you know? And we still have that struggle now. Like, there's still so many promoters that are like uncomfortable with booking me because they don't know how to find someone that disagrees with my character. And in saying that, they're scared of doing a match where it might be perceived as homophobic, which will then reflect on the company.
Yeah.
So it's still a fine line, because in saying that, it's kind of like that in itself is a problem, because you're saying that you don't know how to step out of the realm of my sexuality to find what my character is and what a beef someone could have with me would be. But I can also understand that, especially now in the time of Twitter, it's very easy to cancel a lot of things. So it is a very hard.
But I was just going to say, I think that in a way, though, like, it's, you know what I mean, by saying, like, I can sort of see where you're coming from with that, but in the same sense, like, you know what I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, your sexuality being the catalyst to the reason why a feud is happening. And that's, to me, it's like there can be many other ways.
Exactly that.
Yeah. And I think
that's the point of what I'm trying to show is, obviously the core to my character is that I am very prideful. Proud of myself, proud of what I present, proud of how I present to people. And because that's such a strong part, to have someone that might not like my pride, or someone that might not like how extra that I might be, or someone that might not like that I focus, say, more on fashion than I do about my wrestling ability. There's so many things I can think about that you could find conflict with. Because a lot of that is intertwined with my pride and my experience as an LGBT person, people that aren't within the realm of being queer will find that difficult to intersect. Will find it difficult to separate those things and be like, okay, this can be a storyline that's just focused on this one thing, because they're trying to think about how other people are going to respond. And if other people have a similar mindset to them, or if other people think very 180 about something, and it's wrestling, so I understand, because when you see 15 characters on a show, you're going to identify someone with one thing, your one defining feature. So if you think, say, for example, if, I don't know, they were to put me in a match with Unsocial Jordan, for example, the big fear or the big problem that you're going to face is that Unsocial Jordan, who likes silence, and me, who's very prideful, fans are going to take those two things and be like, oh, is this a gay thing? When it could just very much be, no, this is just about wrestling. You know what I mean?
Or about the personality being, you know, someone who's loud and not necessarily flamboyant, but someone who's loud and someone who's trying to silence,
exactly.
You know what I mean? The people like it.
The people in the audience don't necessarily see that all the time. And if they are trying to reach and find an issue with a company, they will then go ahead and reach and then take that as their reasoning. But without realizing, they're actually affecting the chances that I have to be able to be on shows as a barrier. So it becomes a very hard thing to navigate. So I'm currently in the process of now where I'm at a state where I know I can wrestle and I'm comfortable with my character and all of that stuff. I'm at that point of negotiating with people and trying to get myself to other states so I can play around a lot more with those intersections of issues and reasons why we might wrestle. And that way, if even just one person sees that and thinks outside of that box, then they can start to book people regardless of whatever their fear might be about that person.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I, like I said, for me, I think as well, it depends who your dance partner is as well. If you've got someone who has a good character and can do a good promo and can work in the ring and everything sort of meshes well, they can tell you. I mean, you can tell a story with that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Like that doesn't necessarily have to be that main focus. But as far as like your goals now in wrestling, like where do you what are your goals now moving forward? Obviously, with the pandemic, has put a lot of a hamper on a lot of things with wrestling and obviously the world. But what are your main goals in wrestling now?
Well, even before we had this lockdown, I had a bit of a tough break where I had a match and I was just completely defeated after it because I hated how it turned out. I had a thought going into the match, didn't work out. I didn't like where my physical ability was at that stage, and it really defeated me. So there was about 6 months or 3 months of me trying to recover from that and then put myself in the best position. Then, as I'm prepared, the pandemic hits again. So now where I'm at is trying to get myself a consistent booking and really try to push myself over as a character that people regularly see now, and trying to become someone that other wrestlers want to wrestle. So I don't just want to be a character or something that the fans recognize, but I want to build that respect within the wrestling community itself, so that when they're thinking about potential storylines they want to do or potential things they want to do, I want to be in that conversation because I feel like a lot of the time people don't think about me in that regard. They're thinking about a lot of other things, and I want to be in that discussion. I want to have that. I want to be the first openly gay PWA champion, PWWA champion. That's another one of the steps on there because I feel like that's a very big moment. It will be for me, but also for Australian wrestling as well. And amongst all of that that's happening, I really want to branch out, wrestle in places like EPW is a big one that I really, really, really would like to step into. I would really love to wrestle in Melbourne as well. Deathmatch Down Under. I've got an obsession with death matches. I just want to be thrown into a fucking table of thumbnails and absolutely bleed to death, and it's insane. I really want to wrestle there. Really, really want to wrestle in MCW. There's just so many people that I want to work with and do stuff for. And then after I've wrestled more in Australia, I want to push over and do a season in the US.
Yeah, nice. I mean, you said death matches and deathmatch down under. I'm a huge deathmatch fan. Growing up, as you can see, with the CZW title over there, and for me, when I was younger, I used to like be obsessed with death matches, and as I got older, I'd sort of like look at it. I can still have an appreciation for it, but I look at it and go, why, why, dude?
It's just one of those things. I feel like with how people perceive me in the ring, I feel like doing a death match will be a complete 180 and a brain fuck to what. Sorry, I'm not sure if I can swear.
No, of course, it's shooting the shit. You can say whatever you want.
Right. I feel like it'd be a complete brain fuck to what people expect to see from me. So I feel like there will just be this moment of like this absolute badass where I'm like fairy wings and dust and all this shit, and then like just absolutely like manic smile with blood rushing down my face as I'm glassing someone with a light tube. Because despite what I present myself in the ring, I did grow up in Liverpool. I did grow up in Western Sydney. I do have a mullet cut into my hair, so I understand a bit about coming from that experience a lot more. Cabramatta is one of the local areas that I have, and this is all stuff that I grew up around and a lot of my friends were like. So like that's also part of the experience that I'm trying to integrate more of myself into, because that is me. I used to like play rugby league for 4 years and I knocked out more people than I scored tries.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah. So I'm like, I really just want to be able to do something that can show that viciousness that comes through without it just being like, oh, I'm going to hit you with a chair. Like I want that creativity to come out and just like have that rush of excitement that comes from this death-defying thing that you're already doing, but add that on top.
Deathmatch Down Under, book Silvio. Like I want to see it. I dead set. Like I want to see it. Book it. Joel Bateman versus Silvio. Let's make it happen.
I want to glass someone so bad.
Well, you know what? Like like that like if someone who's not a wrestling fan heard you say that, they're like,
this
wow,
guy's
this guy. Yeah, this guy's crazy. But guys, look, it is nearly at the 1 hour mark. It is that time for 60 seconds with Piers. I have warned or briefed Silvio anyway that you want to look at it, how this is going to work. If you haven't seen this show before, I'm going to fire a bunch of questions. Silvio's got 60 seconds to answer as many as he can get through. Silvio, are you ready?
Absolutely. Never been readier in my life.
You give me the go ahead and I'll start the clock.
Let's do it.
Gold class or VMAX?
Ooh, gold class.
What is your go-to drink on a night out?
Bloody Mary.
Okay. How do you take your tea?
Depends. Not with milk.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Depends on the person. I will say probably chewing loudly.
If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Get out of the way.
Name 5 things sitting in front of you right now.
My phone, my laptop, a Pokemon glow-up lamp, and my mirror, and a fake pop lamp.
What is your go-to party trick?
I can do a headstand and splits.
Oh, wow. If you could delete one item from the world, what would it be?
Donald Trump.
Aliens, real or fake?
Real.
What was the name of your first car?
Felicia, I believe I called her.
Would you rather be 4'5" or 7'7"?
7'7".
Would you rather own a boat or a plane?
Boat.
What did you get in trouble for the most as a child?
Meeting up with strangers.
Favorite song to sing at karaoke?
Halo by Beyonce or Stay Rihanna.
Snapchat or TikTok?
Ooh, TikTok.
In 5 minutes, you are being shipped to outer space. What 2 personal belongings do you take with you, excluding humans?
Sex toys. I'm just gonna put that as a blank label and lots of food.
Wow, there you go. That is time. There you go. Like, that was a very honest Silvio in 60 seconds with Piers. But Silvio, before we wrap it up, where can everyone find you on social media? Where can someone get some Silvio merch?
Well, fortunately, I like to keep things very simple because I never learned how to read. So my Instagram is IDK because I didn't know what to come up with an Instagram name. And on Twitter, it is @me_Silvio because it is, in fact, me, Silvio. Same thing on TikTok is @me_Silvio. And if you're looking for merch, wrestler merch, Silvio Milano, you can find all of my available shirts that I've ever had right there.
There you go. Silvio, it's great having you on. I feel like this hour pretty much just flew by. I'm going to put it out there. I'd love to get you back on for a part 2 sometime down the line. If you're keen, you've got an open invitation on Shooting the Shit anytime you like.
Fuck yeah.
That's it. But guys, make sure you subscribe to the Realm Network, get an exclusive first look at Shooting the Shit, Killing the Business, Get Funked, and Knights of the Gimmick Table. Guys, you can find us everywhere. We are on Twitch. We are on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We are every single where. You can find us MWA Podcast Network. You can get us on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Make sure wherever you find us, you hit that subscribe button. It doesn't matter where you find us as long as you find us. But guys, until next time, thank you so much, Silvio. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you very soon. Peace.